I am now going to be 80 years old. I have never seen sustainable pregnancy, that a woman is pregnant this year, the pregnancy continues the next year, 3 years, 4 years, it never happens. In life, pregnancy develops sustainably within the womb of the woman. Quantitatively, the baby is growing bigger and bigger. But at some stage, quantitative growth must be transformed into qualitative change. The pregnancy must become a baby. If the pregnancy remains pregnancy, the fetus will die. So therefore, I would even ask you to change those words in your documents. Africa does not need sustainable what? You could call it sustainable underdevelopment. Africa needs socio-economic transformation. The pregnancy must become a baby. The baby must grow and become a teenager. The teenager must grow. That's what happens in life. You cannot have quantitative growth and you think you are doing anything.
Hi everyone, hope you are doing well from wherever you're watching this channel, depending on your time zone. Now, there is a video that is gaining popularity on social media, and this was when African leaders were meeting in one of their summit, and the Ugandan President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni was addressing the heads of state and their delegates. There is something Museveni is addressing here, and that is the reason why it is trending. The issue to do with the development of Africa, the growth, economic growth in Africa. What the colonials would want to happen, what they plan to happen in Africa, and what we are going through. That failure in Africa, according to Museveni, which is very true, is a philosophy, ideological, strategic mistake. And he's questioning several issues here. That how comes when it comes to funding serious projects in Africa that are economic to the people, agriculture and other things, it is very hard to get this funding. But when it comes to funding of summit, you want to have a meeting here and there, strategic meetings, you easily attract funding. Why? Because we have individuals who do not want Africa to grow. They focus more on getting raw material from Africa here, exporting to the country, then bringing the end product back to the market. Again, the target is Africa. Do they create a job for Africa or for themselves? These are the reasons why we vanquish in poverty, yet we are rich in raw material. We are rich in minerals. We are rich in very many ways, but we are poor when it comes to real life on ground. So he has gone on and on to explain why we don't realize growth in Africa. Now, and what are the factors to consider in order to realize growth in Africa? Museveni has given several examples from low cost of production, which will come from transport as a factor. Then the issue of electricity. I checked and I came to realize that if you look on what we pay here in Kenya per unit kilowatt of electricity, it is far away from what Uganda is paying. In Uganda, they pay about 9 Kenyan shillings per kilowatt of electricity. Hapa Kenya, nyinyi wote mnatumia stima, mko na majibu. The issue of transport and very many other issues that he has raised. The issue of extracting raw material from African countries, then export it elsewhere, then bring any product. It makes me to remember about the drilling of oil, crude oil from Turkana, then inaenda mpaka Mombasa, inatoka nje ya nchi, alafu story inaishia pale. That is what we go through in this country. But from Museveni has said he will not allow the exportation of raw material from Uganda. Come and build the industry in Uganda, process and export end product. So without wasting time, I want to leave you here with the whole video from President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni of Uganda, that you can listen and be a judge. Because people like President William Ruto was sitting there, and we know what Ruto is good in. We know what Kenya has been going through, and many other presidents. But I think this was just also a message to someone like William Samoei Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya.
The crisis which is in Africa today is because of philosophical, ideological, strategic, economic mistakes, which we have been talking about since the 1960s. This is not an accident. When you see the crisis in many of the African countries, the collapse of states, we predicted this in the 1960s. Philosophical, ideological, strategic mistakes. I don't have time to amplify each one. But I was very happy to hear the President of the World Bank talking about prosperity instead of profiteering. These were his own words. That's what I picked. This has been the problem. Aid has been for profiteering. This has been the problem. Now, the World Bank people and other groups have been talking of sustainable development. Even in your documents, I have seen those words there, sustainable development. I am now going to be 80 years old. I have never seen sustainable pregnancy, that a woman is pregnant this year, the pregnancy continues next year, 3 years, 4 years, it never happens. In life, pregnancy develops sustainably within the womb of the woman, quantitatively. The baby is growing bigger and bigger. But at some stage, quantitative growth must be transformed into qualitative change. The pregnancy must become a baby. If the pregnancy remains pregnancy, the fetus will die. So therefore, I would even ask you to change those words in your documents. Africa does not need sustainable what? You could call it sustainable underdevelopment. Africa needs socio-economic transformation. The pregnancy must become a baby. The baby must grow and become a teenager. The teenager must grow. That's what happens in life. You cannot have quantitative growth and you think you are doing anything. The main reason why there is no growth is because the growth factors are not funded. They are not even understood. What are the growth factors? We now talk of private sector-led growth. Yes, but for the private sector to grow, what does it need? It needs low costs of production. Ministers of Finance, low costs of production. And what are the low costs of production? Number one, transport. You must have low transport costs. Where do low transport costs come from? From the railway. If you don't fund the railway, how will you get low transport costs? Wonderful people. Banco Mundial, IMF, all these. Where will low cost of production come from if you don't have a railway? I have been here for the last 64 years. I've been watching as a student leader, as a freedom fighter, now as the leader of a country. How many railways have been constructed or funded in Africa? The few that have been was by China, the Tanzania Railway to Zambia, and recently China, another one here in Kenya, and then Tanzania on their own, they are building a railway line. So if you are talking of helping Africa, the railway. I don't want to be involved in any other words, no, please. The railway. Because if you fund the railway, you will have low cost of transport, and you can produce products which are cheap, which can be bought in the world. So you audit how much funding, all these billions you are talking about, how much of it has gone to the railway. Audit it. The second cost pusher is electricity. If you don't find electricity and you talk about sustainable development, what are you talking about? Private sector-led growth, maneno too. Electricity, we must have low-cost electricity, not exceeding 5 cents per kilowatt hour. That's what I insist on in Uganda. I'm tired of all these stories. These neo-colonial civil servants who have been holding us back, I have put my foot down, say I don't want to hear those stories. And Uganda is developing, and it will develop, because I don't entertain that nonsense anymore. Borrowing for what? Capacity building. Imagine seminars. They call you in a hotel, you eat chapati, you eat mandazi. They say that is capacity building. Capacity building should be on the ground, not just seminars. So, the second point, Excellencies, electricity. The third one, those people who talk about private sector-led growth. I have been trying to borrow money for our UDB, Uganda Development Bank, a bank which funds manufacturers. No, I don't get support for that. Instead, they want my people to go to commercial banks. But commercial banks cannot give, those commercial banks are to encourage imports, because the only person who can borrow money and pay it back from a commercial bank is a trader who goes to China, goes to Dubai, brings products, sells them quickly, and pays back. So, if you are serious, I need to hear about the low-cost funding for manufacturing. Not for stories, not for what, no, manufacturing. How about funding for irrigation? Because if you want to stabilize agriculture, a country like Uganda is very rich, we have got everything. But still sometimes we get some erraticness in the rain. So in order to stabilize, I've been trying to look for a loan for irrigation. I can't easily get it. Very difficult to get. A loan for seminars, very quick. The civil servants, but a loan for irrigation, you don't see. Now finally, the loan for, I don't know the situation in other African countries, and I don't have time to talk for a long, I don't have opportunity to talk for long. But Uganda is a very rich country. But one of the problems we are having was that our people were outside the money economy. They were in what they call subsistence sector. They just produce for eating. Wanashughulikia tumbo tu. So I was looking for money. Please give me money to give coffee seedlings to these fellows who are just producing for the stomach, so that they can produce for the stomach, but also produce for the pocket, so that they join the money economy. You cannot imagine that by 2013, a few years ago, 68% of the homesteads in Uganda were still in the subsistence sector, in the non-money economy. You audit your countries. What is the situation? What is the percentage of the people? So I had now to use my own money, because I couldn't borrow money from anybody. The loans are for capacity building, for, I don't know, sometimes they give for ICT, but ICT is a communication system, mainly. What are you going to communicate on that communication? How are you? Good morning. And you think that is communication. Why don't you have ICT linked with agriculture, linked with industry? Oh, now the digital. Are you eating computers? Have I seen anybody eating computers? Just running up and down. Maneno too. So I was insisting that all these Ugandans must be in the money economy. 2013, not long ago, 68% of Ugandans were outside the money economy, because Uganda is a very rich country. A fool can survive there. In other countries, fools die. But in Uganda, fools can thrive there. They just eat. He stays with his brothers. He eats. He goes from there to the sister. He eats. He's not earning anything, but he's eating. So we said no. Everybody must be involved in the money economy. We couldn't get any support for that, but we funded it ourselves. Each year we spend about $300 million of our own to make these villagers join the money economy by producing for the stomach, but also for the pocket. And from 2013, I was now told that for the first time, 61% of the people are in the money economy of the homesteads. It is only 39% that are still out. You imagine those are still there, just eating, no money. So therefore, this meeting is. Then you get your neo-colonial civil servants. They talk of import support. Imagine there is money for import support. Import support. The governor writes to me, reports, we have got import cover for so many months. But I don't want to import. I want to export. Why don't you tell me about import substitution and export promotion? Instead you are telling me of import support. Money is available for to become more dependent. So I'm very glad to hear what now finally the cash, which we told our people about in the 1960s, we told them part of the wars we fought in Uganda, we had to get rid of the neo-colonial groups which were there, which were stopping us from thinking. We had to get rid of them by force. But one of the problems was Africa producing raw materials. Matière primaire. They call it in French, matière primaire. Raw materials. Imagine coffee. The global value of coffee is $460 billion. All the coffee producing countries of the world, Brazil, us, all this, we only get 25 billion of that.